Europe refers to China as, and I'm quoting, a strategic partner, an economic competitor, and a systemic rival. China, we know, is close to Russia. China is also your second biggest trade partner after the U.S. The U.S. is changing with the president who believes in deals and tariff wars. Given this backdrop, how are you engaging with the Chinese?
As I said, China will always be a partner for everybody. And we need to deal with China. China is not going anywhere. It will be always there. It will be always an important supplier, and it will be always an important market. The key issue is that we cannot depend on China, and we learned that lesson in 2019 when the pandemic started and we weren't able to supply the minimum protection equipments for our population because we were completely depending on China suppliers, and that proved to be a wrong option. So I would say that China will always be there. It will always be an economic competitor. It's a strategic competitor in the Indo-Pacific, and spreading to Africa and spreading to South America. It's a strategic competitor that we need to deal with. The secret, on my point of view, is never to become dependent on China. That's the basic point.
There's also the security aspect, as you mentioned. I think we have to be also pretty open about it, because it has been published also in open intelligence reviews that China's nuclear ambition and nuclear capability development will soon be at the level of the US and Russia. So China's nuclear warheads, the numbers are growing, the delivery vehicles, the nuclear triad will be finished, which presents a challenge not only for East Asia, for Asia as such, but for global stability. Because I think it's crucially important to have transparency about objectives, to have transparency about possible verification, to have those talks, to have those sort of strategic balance engagements, and that is not happening, and that creates, I think, a challenge for security, for a global security also. In the same time, of course, for economic factors, for EU, you already mentioned China is important. There are obviously competitive challenges, because with regard how China has supported and subsidized its industry, which has provided not a level playing field for European companies or other countries' industries, which then is very difficult to compete, not only within the EU, but also in the third markets. Yeah. So, and that is something that is not fair. So the level playing field, when we speak about it, that means just that we compete on the same footing, that we don't subsidize where it's not necessary, because we believe Chinese companies can be competitive without subsidies, and then that would be a fair competition. Or also with regard to economic coercion, there are cases where we know where other countries have come forward and said that they've been put in an unfavorable situation through that economic coercion. Okay, that is also something that is not exactly, and we need, that is not exactly sort of the way that we behave, so we should also be able to talk about it. But there are also issues on which China can be a partner.
But
climate is a big thing. Yes. Climate is a big thing, and what China has done through the...
I want to dwell on the security challenges.
Sure.
European NATO allies have called China a decisive enabler in the Ukraine war. There have been incidents of sabotage and undersea cables being cut, with Chinese ships apparently being involved. Do you see China as a security threat increasingly directly for Europe, in Europe?
It's not identified as a threat, it's identified as a challenge. Russia has been identified officially as a threat for Euro-Atlantic security because of its aggression against Ukraine. So from our perspective, it's pretty straightforward. We have three big priorities in security. One is to keep NATO strong and keep US and transatlantic relationships strong. Second, support Ukraine's self-defense, because, again, Ukraine defends herself in accordance with the United Nations Charter, Article 51, which is also actually a basis for NATO's existence, which is the right to individual or collective self-defense. So NATO is also a UN charter-based organization. So for Ukraine to defend herself, we would, as you said, clearly prefer China not enabling Russia's aggression, which it is doing. Because its export, unfortunately, it's not necessary for China. And third, for us, is actually weakening Russia's military capabilities, ability to wage war. And that is something that is important, I think, for the whole world, because we are seeing Russia expanding through its militias in Africa, destabilizing countries, regions,
extracting resources.
Exactly. I mean, it's colonial, colonial
there's
power.
one more
North
by
Korea.
the extraction of resources.
Yes, one more dimension
North Korea.
of China's power, and that is technology. And Chinese firms have been accused of cyber warfare and espionage and stealing user data, and several European nations have banned Chinese platforms like TikTok and now DeepSeek. What sort of a challenge, not threat, do Chinese technology firms pose to Europe?
A huge challenge, not only to Europe, to India, it's a global challenge that Chinese capacity on technological, on AI, on quantum computers it means to the globe. The answer that we need to find is the ability to develop our own capacities of investigation on those critical areas, being able to dispute with the Chinese technological development, an even better one. But we need to enable that capacity in Europe that stood behind not only with China but also with the US, and that's one of the main challenges that is now Europe facing, and is a part of the growing autonomy we need to develop in the European Union, that has a market big enough to assure this development.
But in the same time, it's important to have that respectful dialogue with China, because, again, and we have pretty open relationship. Our economic relationship is not so important for Latvia per se. There's, as for the whole of EU, Chinese exports.
Do smaller European countries have a say in how Europe as a whole engages?
Of course, the common foreign policy and defense policy is unanimity. Both
on a double capacity on this relation with big powers, because our relation with big powers like China or even the US is on the capacity of members of the European Union, and we deal as a bloc, but we also have bilateral relations with China.
Absolutely.
In my country, we have strong relations, commercial relations.
So it's
with China
important to talk and to be open in that dialogue, but in the same time also about the issues that are painful.